Welcome to my process video. I decided to pick an animation for my first project. Do I regret it? You know what? No, I can't say I regret it. It just shows that I can do things that are hard, and bear in mind I'd barely done animation before this project. Over summer I created a few animations for TikTok. I literally just traced over people dancing. It got quite good feedback. I thought, you know what, I'm gonna challenge myself, and here I am. Here is a sketchbook where everything was done. If I lost this, I'd actually cry. Here is my task analysis, where I figure out what the hell I am doing. For the brief, they wanted us to produce an animation to accompany one of the two selected audio files that will clarify, energize, and illuminate the content. The audio that I picked was how to be a good ancestor, because thinking about now, sustainability is a very important topic. And in the brief they said ensure the concept is engaging and combine clarity with attention to detail to make the content come alive, which is really the main aim of my animation. I wanted people to look at it and be like, wow, this is amazing. I wanted people to look at it and I wanted people to watch it again, to pick up the little details. Designing everything for this animation takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. I could have picked an easier brief, but here I am. Creating animation, you feel like you've achieved so much. You work a whole day to create one scene that might not even go in the final animation, but it's just the process. One day you'll just sit there and you'll be like, wow, I've got a finished animation. I had never done anything this in depth. The research I needed to do, I need to look at how to design the backgrounds, I need to look at the sound that I need to use and different transitions and how to make the animation itself flow. Starting from the beginning, I just did doodles of what I thought went along with the audio. So I listened to the audio on repeat. I can probably remember it off by heart by now. I researched previous sustainability campaigns. The one that caught my eye was Selfridges Hot Air. Each animation flowed into another scene, like the scene where the pencil turns into a ladder, turns into a vase, and turns into a flower. That transition really inspired me to create something that was really nice to look at. I also looked at different types of animation, so I looked at stop motion, I looked at just digital art, I looked at CGI. Obviously I knew I was limited to what I can do. Looking at other animations such as Domix, he uses humour in his videos, but I didn't want to lose the point that I was trying to get across with my video. The subject matter itself was not a joke, it wasn't something that should be laughed at. So when I was exploring my target audience, I didn't want to create a video that was too serious, and I didn't want to create a video that was too childlike. So I wanted something in the middle, and I feel like pixel art is, because kids today, they know it as vintage, they know it as retro look, but to older generations that was their gaming experience, and they can relate to the video but also listen to the audio that's behind it and think about what they're saying and consider what they can do for future generations and how to be a good ancestor. So I did Crazy Eights. I did come up with a lot of ideas. I looked at doing about the evolution process, but I know that's often been animated, and it's even been animated in the start of The Simpsons. So I thought, you know what, I probably should try something different. And then I thought about following the story of a character, which in the end I have done with my own animation. The idea which I took forward was it was all a dream. So the protagonist sees into the future while they're dreaming, and then they wake up and they're like, ah, and then they realise that they need to think about sustainability and they need to think about the future. The next one would be the split screen idea. it would be a split screen of a sustainable person versus an unsustainable person. Moving forward, I didn't actually consider any other ideas. I came up with 2 concepts. I was like, right, that's me done. Until when it came to feedback, I had my work peer assessed. But when it came to the feedback, they're like, maybe consider more concepts. So I went back and went over everything. I literally went back to the drawing board and started again. I went on to create my final idea, which is the idea that I actually used, which was the video game concept. Speaking to my tutor and speaking to other people, they thought this was a more effective idea. So then it gets to the exciting part where I actually started development and getting into the process of creating a final storyboard and then actually creating animation. And speaking to my tutor Sarah, she said, you need to set down a storyboard to know where you're going, otherwise you're gonna get lost. And that is very smart. To which I came to a final storyboard. It was still messy, but it helped me find my way to the final animation. I had to add in some scenes because the timing was slightly off, or take scenes away, or make scenes shorter. But all in all, I followed the storyboard pretty well, to be honest. And then I finally got into animating. To begin with, I needed to create a character for this world. I have never really looked into character design, and I didn't realise how hard it was. I wanted to create a few characters for the character selection screen. To be honest, I did create the main character off myself just because I wanted to make it personal to me. I didn't want it to just have one character. I wanted to show that sustainability is important to everyone. So I had older characters, I had characters of different races. I wanted to make it more inclusive compared to just having a main white character. Our world is diverse and I didn't want to leave that out of my animation. Moving forward, not only did I have to design the characters, I had to make them move somehow. So I did a lot of research on how characters move in video games. I looked at simple animation, so I looked at the 8-bit games, which run cycles are made out of 2 frames. I looked at more detailed run cycles and swim cycles. Combining animation and pixel art is quite hard, but pixel art makes the animation a lot easier because it's more simplistic and there's only a certain amount of frames comparing to me having to draw every single frame. I can loop the frames over to make it flow and look like the character's running. The animation itself was made on a mixture of things. So after creating the characters, I needed to create a world for them to exist in, which meant I needed to create a lot of backgrounds to match each of the scenes. I needed to create a city, and then I needed to create a forest where the trees have been cut down to show deforestation, and then I needed to show underwater, and etc, etc. There were a lot of scenes, there were so many elements and so many elements that I need to put together to create the final animation. During my breaks from creating the animation, I would play on my Switch, and there's a section where you can just play old vintage games from the NES or the SNES. So playing these games would help me understand how a game starts, how this character selection screen would look, how it would end, what would happen if I died, or what happens if you win the game. So I used all of this to inspire my own work. The software that I actually used for the animation, I didn't use Adobe Animate. I decided to use Photoshop because I found it easier, as it was something I knew, and since I was going into animation and going into pixel art, 2 things that were unknown to me, that I didn't know anything about, I wanted to go in with my comfort zone. So I started with Photoshop and I started to create pixel art using Photoshop. I'd make loops, so I'd make the cycles on Photoshop and then I'd import them to After Effects. So After Effects made it a lot easier to layer the characters over the backgrounds and then move the background and then move the characters individually. It also meant that I could layer text over the top. It was easier to change the opacity and the motion, so if I wanted something to speed up and then slow down, it was so much easier to create on Yes, I'm in my dressing gown, but I forgot to finish editing the video. But yes, that's how I made my animation, and thank you for watching.